Please be seated.
Your Honor, your staff was kind enough to point out that I had to move to Exhibit 146. Talking to counsel, has no objection. I just want to lay a foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Ma'am, showing you once again Exhibit 146. Is that a true and accurate copy of your report that you testified from here today? Reports.
Yes, it is.
Move Exhibit 146 into evidence.
No objection.
Received.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it. I'm done.
Mr. Gray, your cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Williams. When you fired the firearm in this case, number, when you fired that, you used, I believe you testified, you used comparable bullets, and you didn't use the unfired shells that were sent to you, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's all I asked. The answer is yes, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And prior to strike that, and you fired the pistol twice?
Correct, yes.
And had you fired a Taurus 709 prior to that at any time in your career?
Yes, I have.
And how many times? Approximately.
Approximately, say, a handful of times, maybe up to 20 times.
All right. So when you fired this Taurus, you have experience with it. How did you hold on to the handle of the gun? It's not the handle. How did you hold on to the pistol? Tell the jury.
You're going to have a proper pistol grip depending on what hand you are.
I asked you how you held on to it in this case.
Yes, in this case, because I am left-handed, I'm going to first grip the pistol with my left hand. So the back strap of the grip is going to be here around my thumb area. That way I have my trigger finger or my pointer finger able to be able to pull the trigger of the firearm. My right hand is also going to be there around the grip of the firearm for support.
Okay. And you have to hold that tight enough so that when the shell is fired, when the bullet's fired, the automatic goes back and puts another shell in there, correct?
For a proper pistol grip, correct, yes. You want to have a nice firm grip on that so that cycling process can go the full way that it's supposed to go in order to properly eject a fired cartridge case from the firearm and then move forward to move the next round or unfired cartridge into the to be fired position from the magazine of that firearm.
And if you don't hold if you hold the firearm with one hand, it could easily fly out of your hand, correct?
It is a possibility.
And just one other follow-up. The reason I say fly out of your hand is because this Taurus 709 has what's called a recoil, correct?
Most firearms are going to have a recoil to them when you are firing the firearm.
Okay, and I ask you, if I ask you a question and...
Mr. Gray, the objection is non-responsive.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Williams, if you just answer the question asked of you, I think it'll streamline question.
Now, did you determine this pistol to be a double action pistol?
I did, yes.
Okay, and did you tell the jury what that means? You don't have to say yes or no, though. Tell them what it means.
What double action means is that when you pull the trigger, the action of pulling that trigger is going to do two things. It is going to cock or pull back the striker or that firing pin of the firearm and also release it at the same time, allowing that firearm to be fired.
All right, and when you pull the trigger and it misfires on this pistol, can you pull the trigger again and will the pistol fire at that time?
Yes, in this instance, this pistol could.
And that's why it's called double action?
It's called double action because it does that double action of being able to cock and then also release that trigger or striker.
So basically, You pull it once and it doesn't work, you pull it again and it'll work, correct?
Objection to the form of that question.
Sustained as to the form.
Well, when you pull the trigger once and the firearm misfires or doesn't go off, you can take and pull it again and fire, correct?
Objection. Hypothetical posed with no factual basis in the record.
Assuming those facts to be true, is that a correct characterization?
Yes, it is for this specific type of firearm.
And you have 6 pages of notes in this. I have your notes here, and they say, do you have your notes?
I do, yes.
Okay, but you take them out. I'm going to direct your attention to page 1. And we go down to where it says trigger pull. Okay?
Yes,
And it says essay. Does that mean single action?
correct, yes.
And you're writing notes on this case, right? This gun in this case, correct?
Correct, yes.
And you do not have anything filled in under single action, correct?
Correct, yes.
So that would mean the single action would be just pulling it back and it goes off the gun, correct?
Single action means that that pistol, when you pull the trigger, all it does is release the striker or the firing pin of that firearm. So the cocking action has already been done prior to you pulling that trigger.
And the gun shoots, right?
Correct, yes.
And in this case, you have DA and you have 5 3/4, I'm having a hard, is that 168? What is that?
No, that's LBS for pounds.
All right, so the trigger pull on this is 5 3/4 pounds,
Correct, yes.
but is it a trigger pull on the single action or the double action?
No, if you look at my notes here, there is no single action trigger pull because this firearm is a double action firearm. So the double action would mean that it takes 5 3/4 pounds to pull that trigger to the point where it will release, it will cock and then release that firing pin or trigger to fire the firearm.
Okay, so that would be just pulling back the trigger and shooting it then, right?
Yes, it would take 5 3/4 pounds to do that.
So the trigger pull on that would be, what that means is how much force you need from your finger to shoot the gun.
Correct, yes.
And have you ever been asked in your area to test a kickback or recoil of a automatic pistol?
I have not, no.
Is there any lab there that you know of in Madison or Milwaukee that does do that kind of work?
I'm not aware of any lab that does that, no.
Yes, and this firearm holds 7 rounds in the magazine, correct?
Double check my notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, it does.
And it is possible, correct, to have another round in the chamber and then put the magazine in with 7?
Correct, yes.
So it could hold 8 shells at one time.
Correct, yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this witness was told to assume certain facts and then was asked for an opinion based upon that assumption. This is called a hypothetical question. The opinion does not establish the truth of the facts upon which it is based, and you are to consider the opinion only if you believe the assumed facts upon which that opinion was based and have been proven. If you find that the facts stated in the hypothetical question have not been proved, then the opinion based on those facts should not be given any weight. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Your Honor. The way a bullet, sorry, how dare I tell you? So I'm going to ask you a question. How does the hammer of the double action pistol we're dealing with here get pulled back so that it can then go forward and strike the ammunition?
With this specific firearm, it does not have a hammer. It's going to have a striker for the firing pin, which is linear to the firearm. With that, when you pull that trigger, what it does is it's going to, with the action of pulling the trigger, it's going to pull back that striker, and then it's also to the point of the breaking point of that 5 3/4 pounds, it's going to release that striker forward, allowing the firing pin to detonate the unfired cartridge in the chamber of that firearm.
You know how you showed us earlier about pulling the slider back to eject an unfired cartridge?
Yes.
All right. How, if in any way, is that how the gun looks when you pull the trigger of this double action pistol, Exhibit 22?
Can you please explain, is it the to be fired position, how the gun looks when it's in the to be fired position?
I'll ask you a different way. What happens to the slider that you showed us earlier on the pistol? What happens to that slider when one pulls the trigger of the double action pistol that we have here all the way back?
Yes, what happens with the slide of the firearm is when that trigger is pulled and that unfired cartridge is detonated, so it is fired, the bullets of that unfired cartridge is going to be expelled through the barrel of the firearm, where while there's recoil that occurs when this type of firearm is fired, that recoil is going to pull that slide backwards, which is going to allow that cartridge case from the fired cartridge to be ejected, and then it's going to pull it forward, allowing a new unfired cartridge, if there's any in the magazine, to be put into the to be fired position. So essentially that slide is going to move.
When the slide moves to eject the now fired cartridge casing, is the barrel of the gun exposed?
There is, yes, the barrel of that gun is going to be exposed.
Kind of like we saw it when Detective Mickle was up here with you.
Correct, yes.
We don't have a single action gun, but since it's become the subject of some conversation, what does an
I
act?
object to that, move it be stricken.
Well, I haven't read the question yet.
What does a person have to do on a single action pistol so that whatever you call the thing, I'm going to call it the hammer, you can call it what it's really supposed to be. How does a person get the hammer to be in a position so that when the trigger is pulled, the hammer strikes the ammunition and makes the gun fire?
So one must cock back that hammer or that striker, meaning they must pull that back. So for a firearm that's going to have a slide similar to this one must actually pull that slide back and then pull it forward, which would cock that striker. Or in one's instance where there is a hammer, one will pull that hammer back, where then pulling that trigger will just do one action of releasing that trigger.
Might one see that hammer on a revolver like a cowboy gun?
Correct, yes. A revolver with an exposed hammer is a good example, where you would pull that back, where then that would be single action, because pulling the trigger will just do one action of releasing that hammer to fire the firearm.
But what you told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that there are also pistols shaped like the one that we're dealing with here, but they are single action, requiring a person to actually pull the slide back, to cock the pistol, slide it back, and then pull the trigger. And that's a single action, even though it looks like semi-automatic.
Correct, yes.
All right. Whether or not you know of yourself or any other lab doing work to test the recoil of a pistol, in your time, experience, and study, have you ever heard of any science involving studying the recoil of a pistol?
I cannot recall if I have or I have not at this time.
You said you work out of the Milwaukee lab?
Correct, yes.
About how many shooting incidents are you asked to review every year?
Judge, I object to this.
Hey,
Outside the cross-examination.
Can I approach and tell the court?
Overruled, you can answer.
In my time, I would say probably each year I approximately work about 200 to 250 firearms cases a year.
In all those cases, has anyone ever asked you to attempt to determine what happens to the pistol when it recoils?
No, I have not been asked to do that.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, one question. When you want to eject the shell from that gun, for example, like the shell that you looked at to determine it came from this gun, an unfired shell, you would grab the slide and eject it, correct?
Yes, you'll manually have to pull that slide back, allowing it to be removed from the firearm.
And do we have the dummy one? Fake one? Yes. And like I suppose we see TV sometimes, you grab it and you flick it back, right?
Correct, yes.
And when you grab it, the barrel is exposed, correct?
Correct. When the slide is in the rear position, the barrel is exposed.
That's all I have, thank you.
Nothing else?
Thank you. You can stand down, Ms. Williams. And I believe you're released from your subpoena.
I asked if you so. Thank you.
Ms. Ellenwood,
Thanks, Judge. The state will be calling Jennifer Burnside to the stand.
thank you. Ms. Burnside, if you'll come up, please, and raise your right hand. The clerk's going to administer the oath.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Come over and have a seat. And Ms. Burnside, that microphone arm will swing out so that you can sit down comfortably, and then if you'll swing it back in towards you, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the court also is going to provide you with an instruction because there have been some questions asked during the trial that I'm not permitted to be answered. So I want you to understand how you handle those questions, and you are to disregard entirely any question that the court did not allow or going forward may not allow to be answered. As a result, do not guess at what the witness's answer might have been. And if the question itself suggested or suggests that certain information might be true, ignore the suggestion and do not consider the question itself as evidence. Ms. Ellenwood.
Thank you. Can you state your name for the record and spell your last?
Yes, my name is Jennifer Burnside, B-U-R-N-S-I-D-E.
Ms. Burnside, where are you employed?
I'm currently employed with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation as a forensic scientist in the toxicology unit
And how long have you been employed there?
since August of 2019.
Before August of 2019, where did you work?
I was employed at the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in Madison from 2016 to 2019 as a senior forensic toxicologist.
Can you briefly describe what your training and experience is to hold that position?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology, concentrated in molecular biology from Eastern Oregon University. In addition, I successfully completed the training program outlined by the Wisconsin State Crime Lab and complete continuing education courses yearly, which help keep me up to date in the field of toxicology.
May I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Burnside, I'm showing you what's Exhibit 154. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, this is my statement of qualifications.
Does that appear to be a true and accurate document stating all your training and educational experience?
Yes.
We'd ask that Exhibit 154 be entered and received.
No objection.
Without objection.
Ms. Burnside, as a toxicologist, what are some samples or things that you are testing during the course of your duties?
My role is to test biological specimens, so that is body fluids such as blood and urine for the presence of drug and alcohol content.
When you did that, was that at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab?
Yes.
And do you know, does the lab have a permit to do that?
Yes.
Based on Exhibit 154, and briefly, if you can describe to the jury, what experience and training do you have in alcohol analysis specifically?
In addition to completing the alcohol training program at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, I have also attended the Robert F. Borkenstein alcohol course on highway safety. This is a week-long, 8-hour-a-day course that is very intensive and goes through the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of alcohol.
In layman's terms, are you testing someone's blood to see how much alcohol is in it?
Yes.
And how many times have you done that?
At the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, I have tested hundreds of samples. However, in my career, I have tested thousands.
I'm showing you has been marked as Exhibit 173. Have you seen that document before, Ms. Burnside?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is the confidential report of laboratory findings. This is a report that I authored.
And does it appear to be a true and accurate depiction of the report that you authored on July 5th of 2018?
Yes.
And who was the subject of that report, if you know?
The individual listed is Kayle Fleischauer.
And does that say case name before it?
The case name is W18-736, item number M.
Next to or before Chase Fleischauer's name, do you see the marking case name?
I'm not sure what is being stated.
May I approach just to show?
Yeah.
Okay. Right here, Ms. Burnside, is what I'm showing you. Does that say case name?
Yes.
And with this report, does it indicate if you tested someone's blood?
Yes.
And whose blood did you test?
The blood tested was Kayle Fleischauer.
And again, is this a true and accurate depiction of your report that you made on July 5th of 2018?
Yes.
We'd move for the admission of 173.
No objection, Your Honor.
Received.
Can you briefly tell the jury how you test blood for the presence of alcohol?
Yes. Alcohol analysis is broken up into 3 sections: the preparation, the instrument analysis, and then the data interpretation. So briefly, I would remove a blood sample from a refrigerator, allow it to come to room temperature so it's a homogeneous or an equal concentration. Take 2 portions of that blood, place them in 2 separate labeled vials. These vials are then sealed and placed on an instrument. The instrument is called a headspace gas chromatograph flame ionization detector, which is a long name for a piece of equipment that detects volatiles, such as ethanol or drinking alcohol, in biological specimen.
Ms. Burnside, before we talk about that test, How does that blood even get into your refrigerator for you to test it?
Evidence can be delivered to the crime lab either by mail carrier or in-person delivery. Specific to this case, the blood sample was delivered in person by investigator DeMullen.
When you had received that particular blood sample in this case, did it appear to be opened or tampered with in any way?
No, I was the individual that performed a process called intake. So I received the evidence, I took notes on the outer packaging, which was a sealed cardboard box. After opening that up, I found 2 labeled gray top tubes. Both contained blood and both reportedly collected from Kayle Fleischauer.
From that tubes, were you able to run them through that machine that you had previously described?
I tested one of the blood tubes. This is common practice. The second tube is usually saved for additional testing by an outside agency if it requests.
So you took one blood sample and tested it?
Yes.
And can you briefly just tell the jury how you tested that blood?
I removed the 2 portions of blood and placed them into the sealed, labeled vials, placed them on the instrument. The instrument is able to separate the different volatile components in a sample and then detect how much is there in each.
How much of what?
Different volatiles. So this is a class of alcohols. It would be ethanol that most people know as drinking alcohol. But it also detects acetone, isopropanol, and methanol.
With regards to the reading of that report, did you get an ethanol analysis of how much alcohol or ethanol was in that blood sample?
Yes.
And what was that result?
The result was 0.195 grams per 100 milliliters of ethanol.
Now, are you aware of when that blood sample may or may not have been taken from the individual named Kayle Fleischauer?
Listed on the report, the blood sample was taken at 1350 hours on April 14th or 1:50 in the afternoon.
April 14th of 2018?
Yes.
Now, just trying to summarize, does that mean that at 1:50 in the afternoon, it's alleged that the alcohol found in Kayle Fleischauer's blood was a 0.195?
Yes.
Is there a process, Ms. Burnside, in which you're able to determine what an alcohol concentration may have been in an individual's body perhaps 10 hours before that?
Partially. There is a calculation.
I'll object, Your Honor. The rest of this isn't responsive.
And I think that's either yes or no.
Yes, but I need to restate how it was said.
Well, Ms. Ellenwood will restate what she wants then. So yes, you can, Ms. Ellenwood.
Is there a way to determine or make an estimation of what someone's blood alcohol content could have been at a previous time during the day?
Yes.
What is that process called?
The calculation is called retrograde extrapolation. And what it is when we are given a known blood alcohol concentration. In this case, it would be 0.195. Then certain assumptions can be made, and if those assumptions are accepted, it can be calculated back to give an approximate blood alcohol concentration at a previous point in time.
Could a layman just characterize that as an elimination rate of alcohol?
Elimination rate does have to do with it, yes.
Is more of the technical term this retrograde extrapolation?
Yes.
How does one determine what someone's blood alcohol concentration could be? What does that process look like?
The 3 assumptions that must be accepted beforehand is that there was no drinking between the time of the incident and the time of the blood draw. The second assumption is that the individual was fully absorbed, meaning all of the alcohol was in their bloodstream at the time of the incident. And finally, through numerous scientific studies, it has been determined most individuals eliminate alcohol within a certain range at a rate. And so it must be assumed that the individual falls within this elimination rate range.
No, for a hypothetical purpose, if you just assumed all three of those facts that you just stated, would you be able to determine what that individual's blood alcohol concentration could have been at 4 a.m. that morning?
Yes.
That's about 9 hours and 50 minutes difference, would you say?
Yes.
Have you previously done those calculations?
Yes.
And are you able to say what that approximate blood alcohol concentration of that individual of Kayle Fleischauer could be?
Yes.
And what is that?
Hold it, I object, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
Why don't you come up?
May I ask a question first? She doesn't know what Kayle Fleischauer was on. That's totally unfair to say that he had my study, and I used to do it every night, my study of that so-called extrapolation. People have been on from point 1 to 2, we don't know, but it's just speculation. Okay, I'll withdraw.
Thank you. Ms. Ellenwood?
Ms. Burnside, are you able to give what that calculation would be with this individual's blood alcohol concentration of 0.195 at 1:50 in the afternoon would be at 4 a.m.?
I
And-
can.
And again, these are based on your three assumptions.
Yes, the
Thank-
assumptions must be accepted in order to accept the calculation.
And Your Honor, this is a hypothetical then.
Correct. And ladies and gentlemen, I've given you in the instruction on a hypothetical question, and you're to accept the opinions only if you believe that the facts supporting them have been proved. You can answer.
Yes, I can perform the calculation. I would ask that I can use paper and a calculator.
Yes?
Yes, okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, I may have misspoke. You can consider the opinion. You don't have to accept it. You can consider the opinion only if you believe the assumed facts upon which it is based have been proved.
Ms. Burnside, just so I make the record, it looks like you're doing some calculations on a piece of paper with a calculator and pen and pencil there?
Yes.
Pen and paper, okay.
Okay. As I had stated, we must assume the individual falls within an elimination rate range. So that would be slow elimination, average elimination, or fast elimination. So I've done the calculation with all three rates to give three separate results.
First, what is the slow rate of alcohol?
The slow elimination rate is 0.010 grams per 100 milliliters per hour.
And what would that lead for a blood alcohol result?
That would leave at 4 a.m. an estimate of 0.293 grams per 100 milliliters of ethanol.
What about at that average rate of elimination?
The average rate is 0.015 grams per 100 milliliters per hour, and that would produce an approximate ethanol level of 0.342 grams per 100 milliliters at 4 a.m.
And finally, what about a fast elimination rate of alcohol?
A fast elimination rate is 0.025 grams per 100 milliliters per hour and would produce an approximate ethanol level of 0.440 grams per 100 milliliters.
Now, this calculation that you're doing, this retrograde extrapolation, did you make this up or were you trained on this?
This was included in the training I completed at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab.
Is this type of calculation commonly accepted within your scientific community?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
I'm not quite sure what you said. The burn-off rate for a slow burn-off is what?
0.293.
So what does that mean?
That means that by calculating this back, if the blood was taken at 4 a.m., the ethanol level in the blood would be approximately 0.293.
And maybe you misunderstood the question, or I did, but I believe what Mr. Gray was asking, what is the elimination rate on the slow side? Not what was the result, but what did you use as your calculus for the slow rate?
The slow rate is 0.010 grams per 100 milliliters per hour.
All right. And the fast rate is, pardon me again?
0.025.
That's 2.5, and the medium one is 0.15?
0.15.
0.15. And so what you're saying is that that was his blood alcohol count. Strike that. The blood alcohol count in the blood test was what? 19?
At the 1:50 in the afternoon?
Yes.
Yes, at 1:50 in the afternoon, the blood alcohol content was 0.195.
Okay. So if you took the 0.293, and what you're saying is that you're adding that in your hypothetical onto the 195, is that right?
How I'm performing the calculation is I'm taking the time apart the incident and the blood draw, which is 9.83 hours. I take that time, I multiply it by the elimination rate. So with the slow rate, that would be the 0.010. And then finally taking that number and adding it to 0.195.
Did you, I'm just asking you this, did you have an opportunity to observe the blood draw in this case?
No.
Okay. And you do agree, based on your experience in the alcohol field, that everybody's tolerance for alcohol is different, correct?
Yes.
Somebody with a 0.2 sometimes acts like he has a 0.1. Sometimes other people act like they have a 0.3, correct?
Correct.
And that's one of the variables in the mathematics that you did, correct?
An individual's tolerance can play an effect in their elimination rate.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellenwood.
What have you been taught with regards to, you talk about someone's tolerance rate. What is that?
Tolerance is built over time by how frequently or the amount that an individual drinks. So an individual that drinks more than the average will have a higher tolerance. So how this ties into elimination rate is generally individuals who are frequent drinkers will have a faster elimination rate than individuals that are naive drinkers or rare drinkers will have a slower elimination rate.
Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Gray.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burnside. You can stand down. Safe travel.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaiser, your next witness.
Dana. State calls Dana Juaire.
Thank you. Officer, if you'll raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Come over and have a seat, please. And once you get settled, officer, if you'll make sure that microphone arm is in right next to your mouth, please. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning. Would you state your name, spell your first and last name for us, and please speak up. And one of the things that will help is if you pull that closer. There you go. Angle it up towards you. If it'll stay, it won't. Okay. Would you state your name and spell your first and last name for us, please?
Dana Juaire, last name is spelled Juaire.
Where do you work?
The St. Clair County Sheriff's Office in the jail.
You will need to pull it a little closer. That's great, thanks. And what's your job there?
I work down in the jail as a correctional officer.
How long have you had that job?
Almost 18 years.
What is your job as a correctional officer?
To maintain the safety and security of the jail and to book individuals into the jail and assist in other places as needed.
Well, you trailed off at the end, and you talk even faster than me. So, tell me again, what is your job?
To maintain the safety and security of the jail, to book people in, and to assist in other places as needed.
Were you asked to assist in other places as needed on April 14th, 2018, a little after 9:30 in the morning?
Yes, I was.
Who asked you to help out?
Investigator Mikla?
Is that Detective Mikla sitting here at council table?
Yes, it is.
What did he ask you to do?
He asked me to photograph some pictures of Summer Fleischauer
Where did you go to do that?
into the female bathroom,
Where is the female bathroom?
outside the jail, outside door 11.
If you recall, if you don't, that's okay. Do you remember whether Detective Mikla asked you to do that job by phone, by radio, in person?
I don't recall.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 122 for identification. Can you tell us if you recognize who the person is in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Who's that?
Summer Fleischauer.
Moving into evidence, asked to publish.
No objection.
Received, granted.
In Exhibit 122, does it truly and accurately depict Ms. Fleischauer, her body and her clothing, as you saw her when you met her in the restroom?
Yes, it does.
The difference being, in this picture, she's not in the restroom, is that correct?
That is correct.
You said Detective Mikla asked you to assist with photographing Ms. Johnson Fleischauer, is that correct?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 123 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
Those are Summer Fleischauer's hands inside the bathroom.
So who's present when you're taking that picture?
Myself and Summer.
Does this Exhibit 123 truly and accurately depict the palms of Summers' hands as you photographed them in the morning of April 14th, 2018?
Yes, it does.
Move Exhibit 123 into evidence, asked to publish.
No objection.
Received, granted.
As you look at Exhibit 123, can you tell us what evidence on her hands it was you were capturing with your photograph?
There was some dry blood on the insides of her hand.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 124 for identification. Could you tell us if you recognize what that's a photograph of, please?
Yes, I do recognize this photo.
And what's that a photograph of?
This is a photo of Summer Fleischauer's hands and forearms inside the bathroom.
True and accurate from what you took that day?
Yes, it is.
Move 124 into evidence, asked to publish.
No objection.
Received and granted.
What was it that you saw in her hands and forearms that you were capturing in 124?
There was dry blood on the forearm of her, would be her right hand, my left as I'm looking at it, as well as on the top of the same hand.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 125 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
This is a photo of Summer's hand inside the bathroom.
True and accurate depiction of what you saw and photographed on April 14th, 2018?
Yes, it is.
Move Exhibit 125 into evidence.
No objection.
Received,
Asked to publish.
granted.
What was it that you saw on her right hand and arm that you were capturing in Exhibit 125?
The dry blood that's on, would appear to be dry blood on the forearm of her right arm as well as on the top of her hand.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 126 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
This is a photo of Summers's hair in the bathroom.
True and accurate depiction of her hair as you saw it that day?
Yes, it is.
Move 126 into evidence, asked to publish.
No objection.
Received, granted.
What did you see in her hair that you wanted to capture a picture of for evidentiary value?
I noticed what appeared to be dry blood in the ponytail of her hair.
Is it pretty much right in the center of the photograph, Exhibit 126?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 127 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
This is a photo of Summers in the restroom, a photo of her neck.
Truly and accurately depict what you just described?
Yes.
Move 127, asked to publish.
No objection.
Granted, permitted.
What was it in the vicinity of her neck under her chin that you were trying to capture?
What appeared to be dry blood on the bottom part of her neck, right under her chin.
Indicate for the record the witness has pointed to her right chin area.
So noted.
Showing you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 128 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
This is a photo of Summer Fleischauer's legs, like her bottom half, hips to feet.
How dressed?
In black leggings with no shoes.
Truly and accurately show how she looked when you were taking her pictures on the morning hours of April 14th, 2018?
Yes, it does.
Move Exhibit 128 into evidence, asked to publish.
No objection.
Received and granted.
What did you see on the knees of her pants?
There was what appeared to be blood stains on both knees of her pants as well as on the upper thigh area of the right side of the pant leg. The right side.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 129 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
This is a photo of Summer Fleischauer's legs.
And what did you and Summer do so that you could take a photograph of her legs?
I had her lift her pant legs, the bottom half of her legs, pants up to her knees.
Does 129 truly and accurately depict that scene as you saw it?
Yes, it does.
Move 129 as to publish.
No objection.
Received and granted.
Why did you have her raise up her legs above the knees on her pajama pants?
To check to see if there was anything that may appear to be dry blood on her legs.
After you did that, what does this picture show us you found?
That there was what appeared to be dry blood on the knees of her legs.
Did you, do you recall, and does the picture show whether or not you saw any blood on her feet?
Yes, there is some blood on her feet.
And in the lower right-hand corner of 129, does that show some portion of the footwear that she came to you wearing?
Yes, it does.
The blood that you found and photographed on Ms. Summer Fleischauer Johnson Fleischauer's feet, was it on the tops or the bottoms of her feet?
It was on the top of her feet.
What, if anything, did you, excuse me, what, if anything, were you wearing on your hands during this process?
I had gloves on.
What, if anything, did you recover from Ms. Johnson Fleischauer?
Once the pictures were photographed, I was asked to take the clothing from her and hand it over to Investigator Mikla.
So what of her clothing did you take and give to Detective Mikla?
Her pants and her shirts that she was wearing, as well as her shoes.
What did you give her to wear?
Clothing that we had in the jail facility. We have donated clothes that come in. There were donated items that we gave her to wear instead.
Did you see any bruises, cuts, injuries, scrapes on her?
I did not.
Thanks. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
How do you pronounce your last name, ma'am?
Juaire.
Juaire? Deputy Juaire, on Exhibit 127, could you put it up, please? And I'll bring it up to you so you can see it closer. On her upper lip, and I'm talking about Summer Fleischauer, on her upper lip, does that appear to be blood, a red
Objection, compound question.
Well,
Appeared to be blood.
thank you. Does that appear to be blood?
I don't know what that is on her upper lip.
Well, let's, I have to do it. There is, well, you don't know what it is, but there is a red mark on her upper lip, correct?
There is a red spot on her lip.
There's a red spot, the same as a red mark.
Yes.
Okay, I have it. Thank you. And did it appear that her upper lip was swollen?
Objection, foundation.
Well, officer, have you seen swollen lips in your career?
I have.
You can answer, thank you.
If you know.
I don't recall if her lips were swollen.
Okay. And as far as bruises, cuts, scratches, did you look for bruises?
I was asked to look and mark and take, I was asked to take any photographs of anything that may appear to look like blood.
What? So the answer to that would be no, you didn't look for any bruises?
If I would have seen something out of the ordinary, I would have brought it to the attention of the investigator.
So the answer to that was you didn't look for any bruises because you're assigned to look for blood. Fair statement.
Correct.
And with respect to the bottom of Summer Fleischauer's feet, did you look at the bottoms of her feet? Do you have any report? as to-
I did not look at the bottoms of her feet.
And do you know whether or not, back up, excuse me. I probably missed this. Approximately what time did you take these photos?
Without looking at my report, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, was it after 1 PM in the afternoon?
No, it was not.
Earlier than that?
I believe so.
And where did you take the photos?
In the restroom?
Did you go into the restroom with her?
Yes, I did.
Okay, do you know where she was at before that?
In the hallway of the jail?
And as far as time, that would be when she arrived after some time when she arrived at your office, correct? I want to have an approximate time. Did you take the photos at 4:30 in the morning or 9 in the morning? 8 in the morning. You must have some idea as to when you took the photos.
They were taken, I know, after 6 in the morning, because I started shift at 6.
All right. And prior to 6, had you been with her between 4:30 and 6?
No, I was not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. You said earlier on cross-examination that had you seen anything out of the ordinary, you would have alerted the investigator. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell me what sorts of things you would consider to be out of the ordinary, regarding which you would have told Detective Mikla?
Any major cuts or bruises that appear to be abnormal?
And you didn't make such an alert, did you?
I did not.
You said earlier, looking at your report, would refresh your recollection as to what time you did with Ms. Summer Johnson Fleischauer, what you did, is that correct?
Correct.
Showing you page 22 of the tender discovery, does that report help refresh your recollection as to what time you did what you did?
Excuse me, Your Honor, could we stop the defendant's discovery comments?
Thank you, counsel, caution. Does that refresh your recollection, deputy?
Yes, it does.
And can I have it back?
Yes.
I'm sorry. What time did you do this?
Approximately 9:39 in the morning?
On the morning of April 14th, is that right?
Correct.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Thank you, stand down, deputy. Mr. Kaiser. Mr. Kaiser, we're going to take a break right now. Lunch has been delivered, and it's a hot lunch, and I don't want to be accused of serving cold lunch. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, don't form an opinion if any discussion, start your deliberations. We'll anticipate that 12:30, 12:45, when you're ready, we'll be ready. Thank you. Take the jury out.
All rise.
Oh, well, actually, now that you said that, it could happen, so I'll let you know.
We'll plan on reconvening sometime between 12:30 and